If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
Because I couldn't reach it the same way that my ads are getting to people in Germany. They couldn't get it 5 years ago. Unless you were in the car on AM radio in daylight in Baltimore near the Beltway. That's the difference between being a $1 million radio station, a $50 million radio station, where I have 3 times the amount of web traffic as the company that would have cost me $50 million 15 years ago. And I can prove it every day, in every meeting, across every platform, except Arbitron, where they still have 1.2 million listeners a week and I have no one, and yet, they have this many people following them on Twitter.
That's the same thing with the Nielsen's and all these little agencies, the MGHs and all of them of the world, that all they know is buying TV and Nielsen. I can record shows on my DVR.
This is a pissed off salesman.
Me
too.
This every single commercial with my DVR and skip through every one.
I watch American Idol every single week faithfully, and
Those spots are expensive.
and unless the dog is picking up the Coke thing and going, I don't see the Coke.
Right.
I mean, freaking Ford commercial, click right through it. Right? I mean, yeah, Ford, great. Get out of the car, sing. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all the product placement now. I mean, you see it, especially like NFL Network. Their set has a Coors Light logo built into it now. So they're making sure you get eyeball on it. Again, I'd hate to be the guy who sold it, who has to go back and say, well, we created 350,000 new Coors Light drinkers out of that, and we managed to sell 24 million cases of beer because you damn well spent $8 million on that thing. I hope you sold some beer. But in the future, look, a lot of the sports marketing side too, and Marco would tell you this too, is, I want to be on the team plane. I want to meet Alex Ovechkin. I want to have his children. I want his autograph. I want a picture on my, I want his jersey over my desk, autographed personally to me. There's a lot of that goes on too.
There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of relationship.
Absolutely. Companies want to get out of us things that they can't get anywhere else.
Access.
Access. We're in competition for the advertising dollar with Comcast Sportsnet, with radio stations, with TV stations, with newspapers, whatever. But there are things that we can do that all these other medias cannot do, and that helps us get business away from other places.
And it's become, in sports, just so you know, it's become a real struggle, right? Brian Billick's my partner. Brian Billick was the first guy to sign up for Hard Knocks, right? You all know what Hard Knocks is, yes? Inside access to an NFL team, to the warts, to the foul language, to the everything that goes on short of bounties, on their videos. And that kind of access 10, 12 years ago was unheard of. John Harbaugh would rather cut off his left leg than let anyone ever have a video camera anywhere on his team plane, anywhere in his hotel, anywhere in his locker room. That's an old school way of thinking. And you know what that does? That screws Marco down the hallway. Because the guy at Southwest Airlines wants to sponsor that for $850,000 because why? She can't get anywhere else.
So there you go. Our general manager of the Capitals, George McPhee, the GM, he won't allow us to do sponsorships on the plane because he's old school and he doesn't believe it.
Right. How much money does that cost you?
It costs us a lot.
Right.
But
he doesn't care. Because his job, back to content, is win. I don't care about these sales clowns down the thing or that sign. I want to kiss the trophy, because that's how I make my money. So you get a lot of that inside. That's the graduate course, the politics that goes on inside these sports organizations where everyone has a different agenda, right? The owner wants to win and make money. The sales staff needs them to win to make the money. The guys on the field don't care about anything other than winning. And what gets in the way of that? And then you have the factors of the backup quarterback hates the starting quarterback, and the starting quarterback hates the quarterback coach, and the offensive coordinator's not calling the play for the tight end, but wants to get the ball to the wide receiver, and the running back's not getting enough touches, and his Jerry Maguire's on the phone saying, throw me the ball, Rod Tidwell, you know what I mean? So there's all of that goes on too that affects, at the end of the day, whether the team wins or not. And even when the team wins, what good is it if you can't take your client on the plane to do the handshake to get the $1 million so Ovechkin can get a raise? I don't know. That's next year's course, I guess. But that's certainly something that he deals with on the sports side. And one other thing I thought of, from a journalism perspective, the one thing you'll never see on his website Ovechkin stunk yesterday, and he did, but Backstrom specifically stunk yesterday, and Weidman really stunk yesterday, and Hammerlick's old and awful. You're not going to read that on washcaps.com, right? That's why you come to me. That's part of the analysis that we would hope as a free medium, and I could do another whole course on what the Orioles do to keep bad words off of websites and off of all their medium. They just buy off the media.
Right.
They go to Channel 13 and say, here's $500,000 in 8 games. I don't want to hear anything negative about my last place team.
You remember when the team was, there's 3-4 years when the team, the flagship was 105.7 and CBS.
Correct.
The post-game show, Angelos wouldn't let there be any calls.
No calls on the post-game
calls on
show.
the post-game show.
No
It was
complaints
Tom
about the
Davis
team.
talking for
It was
an hour.
contractual in the contract. Any criticism of any Oriole team member, employee, ownership is cause for voiding the contract. And you're a sports radio station. That makes your product awful. When the last place team's there, you can't criticize.
The post-game show is unlistenable. Yeah, Tom Davis. Was
Team
found-
lost
found way
30-3
right.
one night.
Yep.
And the post-game show, well, they're in 5th place. Not last place, 5th place. Because you couldn't say they were in last place. And there was no 6th place. So, that's another game. And again, that's the difference between an old school guy like McPhee that would say, what is our team website saying that Hammerlick's getting old for? Well, they're saying it over at the Washington Post, and they're saying it on my station, and I said it on the radio this morning. But, it's the old, there are no weeds in my garden. There are no weeds in my garden. Maybe not now, but the reality of the internet, and I see this all the time, right? The Orioles owner's 82. What the hell does he know about your iPhone? He's got $2 billion. He's completely out of touch. He thinks there is no criticism. So if I buy off Channel 13, 11, 2, and the Baltimore Sun, no one will ever criticize me. It's like something like right out of Mubarak in like Egypt or something, that there can be no. Remember the goofball that ran around with Saddam Hussein? The guy with the funny beret hat that stood next to Saddam Hussein the whole time? There is no occupation. There are no infidels here. Meanwhile, we got 150,000 troops on the ground in Baghdad. But he's standing down there saying to state-run TV, or state-run TV, There are no Americans here. I don't know what you're talking about. Our people are fine. There are no Americans here. Because to their way of thinking, they controlled the message. Because there was no internet. China's like that. When I was in China, YouTube's blocked in China. You don't. When I was over there, their communist government wouldn't allow the media into the stadium because they were having problems and they didn't want any criticism. Well, that's an Asian thing too. Asians don't criticize anything. It's loss of face, loss of honor. That's a different course down the hallway. But it is funny how the controlled message no longer exists. You guys see the ugly part of it being young people in the political structure of, the Republicans hate the Democrats hate the Republicans, and all the stuff that they pump out. Some of it you can believe, some of it you can't, but then it comes back to, do you trust? Which goes back to your product question, which is, my brand is trusted. My brand's going to give you the truth. My brand is not bought off by George McPhee or Ted Leonsis or Peter Angelos or Steve Bisciotti. We're going to say what we say, and we're going to back it up, and we're going to hope that we have the information and facts. Facts are a bitch, aren't they? They're awful. I hate facts. They get in the way all the time. But that's the one thing the teams are always going to struggle with, is that the teams are never going to criticize themselves any more than I would want one of my employees writing on the website that I screwed up a sale today or something like that. And everybody's sensitive about that. So you've all unfriended people. You've all been sensitive about something that's written on your page. your own franchise at this point.
All right.
Yeah.
Any final questions for Nestor? You got one more question?
She has one. What did she say? Thank you very much for being a great audience, and I appreciate your time, and hopefully you learned something or whatever. If you guys need cards from me or need to find me, I'm right up the street, and if you're a great sports marketing person, I'd like to hire you. I like that sort of thing. What's that? You any good?
Great.
Let's go. That's to be determined. Thanks again.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.